So there's a lot of great things I want to talk about. I love this great perspective that we have from different industries. You know, we have real estate, transportation, insurance across the spectrum here. I want to start by getting everyone familiar with what you're doing as far as automation and how are you using it within your company for your specific industry as well. So Marcus, I'll start with you as far as real estate. How are you incorporating automation? What do you find it the best part of it as it's helping your company?
Yeah, so for Choice Properties REIT, the biggest opportunity we're finding is to help us improve the efficiency of our backroom operations. And you know, that really for us was the low-hanging fruit, easily identifiable opportunities, and you know, there's lots of work for us there. And we bring the most value to the business. Some of the previous speakers spoke about, you know, making life better for the staff, and we found that this really was the best opportunity for us to bring a big impact, and also to start to show the organization the potential of the technology in a very real way.
Perfect. Rohit, for transportation, let's say, for where you are, where do you find it the most useful in your company?
So it's very similar, I think, to what Marcus said. I think, you know, for us, we're new in the journey, in the automation journey, on the innovation journey, and like looking at the low-hanging fruit, proving the value out is where it is. People and time are the most important things. What we have, we don't have infinite time. So how do you help create more opportunity to make people doing the work that they need to be doing more valuable for them? So it's balancing that out.
All right, and Mamta, for you, for insurance?
So within, and for those who know Manulife, it's insurance, benefits, as well as asset management, and worldwide we have different products and things. So globally, what we've been doing is obviously very similar back office process automation, but where we've seen the most value is within areas such as finance and actuarial, where there was traditionally a lot of manual processing and a lot of Excel spreadsheets. And so where we've invested is putting in a lot of time with RPA and working with our teams to automate those processes. And we've seen, because we are global, we operate in 3 different I guess regions, but in Asia it's 10 markets, so it's a lot of different things altogether. There we've actually seen the most amount of automation that's brought value is taking kind of a consistent approach to how we automate some of the standard processes we did manually, and especially in those kind of 2 brackets. Yeah.
Now, how do you decide what's the best process to use? Rohit, I know we were talking and you have an extensive way of going through this and different charts and everything. How do you explain this? What's the best way to go?
The way we would, it's hard, right? Because you can create value and you can talk about the value, and it can be very biased in terms of the sponsors, because automation is not a team, it's across the organization. So how do you create an unbiased approach and a framework really to be able to prioritize the work that you need to do? So creating a set of, you know, we've kind of created a gain versus impact 4-quadrant framework where we kind of map things out. It's unbiased, it's a formula that we put things in and an outcome is created. And that really creates the priority and gives an unbiased approach to how the sponsors need to look at the organization, the prioritization of the organization across what it is that we're doing. So having that qualitative versus quantitative approach is something that we try to use that as a gauge. But again, it's not perfect. It will iterate as everything that we do. However, it is something that gives us at least a start to focus on what we believe are the most important things. And there's a lot of measurements, right? It's not just qualitative. It's high. When I say qualitative versus quantitative, very high level, but there's a lot of detail underneath that, and happy to share that with everybody as we go through this. But certainly that's an opportunity for us to start to create the conversation around what is the most important priorities.
Well, yeah, so expand on that. Give us an example of something that
there could be things around customer satisfaction. There could be things around customer, CSAT is a great example for something that we measure in the transportation organization. How satisfied are our customers? So what are some opportunities that are going to create an opportunity for us to increase CSAT? Revenue is an important piece. So there's a lot of different factors, and we want to use that in an unbiased way to be able to create a list of priorities, in which then we will share with each of the the sponsors in a more senior steering committee to identify these are the opportunities. And it creates the conversation. It's not going to be perfect, but it allows us to have that conversation at a starting point. Because if you don't have, it's very hard to go in and talk about what's important if you don't have a starting point. So start there.
Start there. Marcus, how do you decide where you find the most value for it? The pros and cons, is it the same kind of?
Well, I think I agree with Rohit. I think it's important that you have some sort of a framework to prioritize the opportunities. Again, one of the earlier panelists made the comment about bringing value to the business, and you have to work on initiatives that bring value to the business. But I think the other way, as an IT department, you bring value to the business is helping the business figure out where they get the most value. Because what we found in our experiences, they don't always know, and sometimes the ideas that they come forward with actually don't add a lot of value. And so we worked very hard to create a partnership with the business and to build up trust and to create that dialogue. So when they come forward with areas where they see pain points or where they think there's potential, we do a lot of questioning, we do a lot of discussion with them, and really try and get at the root source of the problem. If we've made mistakes in our journey, one of them has been solving problems for the business and then finding out after the fact you're solving something very superficial, and you didn't really, there was actually a core issue you had to deal with, and now you can't get the business interested because you took away the daily pain, but organizationally you still have a core issue in your infrastructure that you got to fix. And so now how do you get the momentum to do that? So I think a framework is key, and we have one as well. And all you have to do, like, the framework doesn't have to be precise. It just has to let you sort out the bad, poor, low value proposals from the ones that are at high value.
It's a directional priority.
It's a direction,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent. And since you brought up kind of that challenge, Mamta, I'm going to bring you kind of a two-parter. Talk about how you find those projects that have the most value, but also something that may have been a challenge that you've faced and that you've overcome, and tell us how you went through those steps.
Sure. So for us, it's at the end of the day, it's always the business comes to us with a problem they want to solve, and it's always this. In 99.9% of the time, it involves some sort of technological automation component. So we know that it's going to be something we have to solve for them. We do an assessment of what that looks like. The way that we determine if it's something that we even go into is quantifying the value. So everything that, if we're looking to, and I'll actually answer your second part of the question on an example. We had our actuarial team come to us with something that they needed to solve, and it was basically our global framework and how we would automate a process for modeling. Right now, they were using a lot of Excel spreadsheets to do a lot of work, and they needed something automated because we have quarter-end reporting, and for those who know financial standards, IFRS 17 is a big new way of doing accounting standards, and technology has to enable that. So what we had done is said the amount of man hours, the amount of processing time that it takes to actually use the storage, compute, and output. We put together a business case with them on what that would look like, and how, if we invested in a certain build or buy, usually it's build for us internally, that we would be able to complement that and do that for them, and this is the value that it would bring to the organization. So for us, that's how we kind of approach the situation, and it's a relationship. And the sign-off has to be with, obviously, our CEO, because it's a pretty big thing, but we generally do that with all of our functions. So I support all functions internally, so whether it's HR, whether it's operations, whether it's marketing, whatnot, we take the framework of what is the overall value, prioritize that value, and then execute upon that.
And really, what kind of challenge, can you give us a specific example of something maybe you faced and how you were able to overcome that?
From a challenge perspective?
Yes.
Yeah, I think just awareness. I think awareness is a big component of it. Not every, so we're, again, the services across the organization. So every team is different. They're in their own journey. Some are more mature, some are not. So it's just really trying to understand where they are and how to help and support. Again, it's really not about a automation. I think Julie maybe had mentioned earlier, it's not about a single team that's running automation. Automation is part of the organization. The framework and the methodology and how we do it can live within one team, but it's something that needs to be in the mindset. So it's really just awareness and bringing teams along the journey on what it is they're looking to do and how they're looking to achieve it, right? Because ultimately it's not just about automating a process, it's what is the impact to your customer, to your people, to whoever your audience is. So that's just, it's really guiding that journey along.
Now we talk about transformative change, easy to say, transformative change. What projects are you doing now, or something that you're really proud of, or something that really stands out from your company? And if you can describe exactly what that is. Marcus, we'll start with you.
Oh, wow. You know, I think, so transformative change it can be difficult. You know, I think for us, the first one that comes to mind is one of the issues we had in real estate is finding a good budgeting system. Real estate budgeting is actually quite complex. And there's no good tool out there, and it was an endless source of frustration for the organization. And it was all, you know, the technology we were using was always getting the blame. You know, the reality was there was process issues. You know, there were some training issues with the people, and part of it was the technology. We couldn't find a good off-the-shelf solution. And so what we ended up doing was buying a low-code platform and building something ourselves, working with the business. It was a large collaborative effort with multiple departments to build essentially a made-in-choice budgeting system. You know, I undertook the project with a lot of trepidation. Because we aren't a development shop, it isn't really part of our strategy, but this really was, we thought, the best solution. We sold it to the business, and it's been extremely successful. We're now we've run with it for a couple of years. It's addressed many of the issues. The leasing people like it, the operations people like it. It works for accounting, and it really has transformed our whole budgeting process, and was a good, and also did a lot to build up that trust with the business, to show that, you know, you can use technology in a way to do something that's different and special.
Yeah, these are the stories I like to hear. These are great stories. Mamta, if you can explain something, maybe a project that you're working that really, really stood out to you.
I'll give one large example and then one small that we're working on. Well, it's not that small, but over the past 3 years, we've actually been on a cloud migration journey. So we've moved over 62 to 3% of our applications onto our cloud platform, which is Microsoft Azure. It's not a secret, it's all public information. And for us to actually have done that organizationally worldwide, it was a huge challenge. And it wasn't just because, you know, for me, it's all internal applications, but we also have a lot of customer-facing applications. So we'd have to work with our segment CIOs in making that happen. And in markets like Asia, for example, for those who have worked in Asia, it's not very easy. You have different regulations, different governments, different requirements. And so for us to actually have done that was a huge feat that really, and to bring people along that journey was to show them the benefits of what would be the outcome as a result of moving onto cloud. That yes, it's going to be really like pulling teeth for us to do all of this, and we are comfortable with mainframe and on-prem solutions, but we really have to think about what we can do now and what the output can be as a result, and showing them that business case. And that was a lot of work. And we've been pretty successful, knock on wood, with that. In a second now that we're delving into, and I think a lot of us here is looking at working with Microsoft on Copilot. So that's something we've started to pilot internally, and that is a big, huge transformational change. So, we've just started the journey, so I can't really say I'm proud of it yet, but it is something that we are working on, and that, of course, will be transformative. So.
And for Rohit, for you?
Yeah, so I think for us, like I mentioned, we're still trying to tackle the low-hanging fruit, providing the value, but I think what I'm probably most proud of right now is the fact that we're trying to implement the mindset into the DNA of what we do and how we do it. We have communities of practice, so we don't want this to be an IT thing, right? This is a cross-functional thing. So creating a communities practice where every week we sit and we discuss, we talk about the opportunities, and just really creating that mindset, a design thinking approach in terms of how to solve problems is something that we're very interested in, to make it user-centric. So I'm looking ahead at the question.
You do.
But it's also just about making sure that you're not automating for the sake of automating. Why are you automating? What is the outcome that you're going to get? And I think I'm really happy with the way we're approaching that, because it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight, but we need to really put that in the mindset of all of us in terms of why we want to do things and how we're going to do it.
Yes, and I'm glad you touched upon it, because it's a two-part question. The first part we've kind of hit upon, but it's also this question of any insight into new mistakes made with the implementation of automation. Have you seen any of that, Marcus? New mistakes being made because of automation?
Yeah, I think new mistakes made with implementation. Yeah, I think the advice I would give is don't be afraid to start small. I think the mistake, there's a potential for a mistake to go too quickly, too big, too fast, and this is new technology. I think it's going to take time to build up trust in it, to perfect it. It's also going to take time to find out, like, what are the real use cases for this. I think, and especially for a business like ours, where the IT function within the business is much smaller. There isn't necessarily a lot of technology put out there to deal with a lot of customers, let's say a big customer base or a big user base. Just talking about our journey and looking back 4 years when we started, we couldn't figure it out at the start. And so we made a strategic decision to start small. We brought in a tool, we didn't spend a lot of money, and we started experimenting with the business to see, like, what really is the use case, where can we add the most value. And it was good, because in the end, as we went through our journey, we found out where we thought the opportunity was going to be is not, in fact, where we could deliver the most value. And so our strategy evolved over time. And so to take an incremental approach, I think, ended up serving us well.
Excellent. Mamta, what do you think about new mistakes being made?
I think there will be a lot of new mistakes that are going to be made, with especially now with how OpenAI is going to be playing such a strong role in automation. I think what is really vital and to success of not making those mistakes is having the right guardrails and governance that's put in place. And that's something that, as an insurance company, we are really regulated, like to a point that I cannot even explain. So we are risk averse to the T. So the amount that we invest in making sure that we have the right guardrails in place to not make those mistakes, especially with OpenAI and having the right infrastructure there, that I think is what's going to help. But in general, when you're looking at automation, just being able to, work in an agile mindset, understanding, like, if you've made this mistake, how do we pivot and kind of correct that, and have the right people at the table, and not be punitive as a result of making those mistakes with automation. I think that's really the key, because otherwise, in this day and age, you can't really be successful otherwise. So.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it's less about failing fast, but learning fast.
Yeah.
So I actually encourage some of the mistakes sometimes, because you actually learn, and I think that as long as you're methodical in how you approach it, and to your point, small, low-hanging fruit, make it small, make the impact less, but learn. I think that's really important. So I actually kind of encourage the mistake part of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about cost effectiveness. It's an investment. It's an investment for a lot of these companies, and for those who are on the fence about automation, how did you make it most cost effective for your companies? I want to go through that. Was it, through partnerships? What were some of the things that you did to get the most bang for your buck? Marcus, we'll start with you.
I think, we did a couple of things. As I said earlier, we consciously made a small investment. So we brought in tools that weren't too expensive, and we had a number of options, anywhere from less than $50,000 to more than $300,000. So we picked the cheaper one because that was our comfort level. The other thing we've done is, we have, as I mentioned before, for our budgeting, we brought in a low-code tool, and we did it with our in-house skill set. But the other thing we've done that I think is a little bit unique is we formed let's say a business relationship with a small startup that had a really good idea to solve a specific issue that real estate companies deal with, and in particular Canadian real estate companies, where they have to charge back CAM and operating costs and realty taxes to tenants. There's a very complicated process to do those calculations and allocate the cost back. They came up with a tool that was a really good calculation engine, but wasn't enterprise ready, couldn't integrate, and we had a vision for how you would do that. And so we ended up doing a deal with them. We helped them with the development. We got a good deal on the licensing, and we went through a collaboration for the last 2 years, and in fact, just this week we did the final integration. And again, we think we have an excellent tool. We're one of the first companies in Canada to have this tool. The accountants love it. We're going to get a ton of efficiency out of it, and that, I think that's a big win for us. So really, to sum up, we've had a variety of strategies that we've used depending on the situation.
Got it. And Rohit, what's worked for your company, Metrolinx?
So I think, we've been a little bit on a transformation journey for the last 2.5 years. I think, primarily, being part of a Crown Corporation, I think, before I joined, we were very much reliant on, external help to really tell us and walk us through how we need to do things. And we've really brought that talent in-house. So I think from a people perspective, we've done a lot of great work to bring that in-house, what our former CIO called it, the brains in, arms, legs out, meaning we have the knowledge in-house and we control our own destiny. So we're really bringing that talent in. And some of the use cases, just to further to your point, some of the use cases that we're building off on, like, now that we've started provided the value, we're starting to see use cases coming up that are actually really important to just what people's experiences are on ridership and transportation, and really from a safety perspective, really tackling those types of use cases, because those are important. The other thing is QA automation, and we keep talking about the RPA component of it, but there's also the QA automation of it, which I think is very important, because every project that we do now it's a guideline. Before you can say you're done, you need 80% QA automation in all the scripts that you're running. So regression testing, those types of things are part and parcel for what we do, and the opportunity and the savings that we're seeing from that alone are significant.
Excellent. And Mamta, how do you make it the most cost efficient for your company?
I think, again, at the end of the day, we have to show what the value it's going to bring to our business. For us, we're a cost center. Technology is a cost center. So what the business needs is to be a digital customer leader. That's what our CEO has publicly said. That's where we want to be. So that means internally we have to make sure we're making the right investments to make that happen in the most cost-effective way, which is not always easy, but we have to show how we're using automation to make that happen. So that's, taking, believe it or not, we had fax machines, taking those out, this is like a year ago. And things like, how can we look at our processes internally, how do we automate those to support our front office users to make things easier for them. So at the end of the day for us, it's just really showing how we will use certain processes and automate internally to bring value and, by testing and automating testing and all those other things for our end users. So